friend Sarah leaps through time in an attempt to save the future, so too does a beleaguered Square Enix make a bid to amend the past, aiming to quell player misgivings of Final Fantasy XIII in a sequel that seemingly does it right the second time around.
Save it.
Fate has taken an unlikely turn, allowing these imperiled souls another chance at turning things around. But does Final Fantasy XIII-2 change history, or repeat it?
It doesn't have to happen. No, we can change the future.
Looks like the future starts now.
Just moments after delivering Cocoon and Pulse from certain doom, the valiant Lightning vanishes without a trace, leaving little sister Sarah without a bare toned shoulder to cry on. It isn't long, however, until she's gifted with the ability to traverse time and space by her spirited away sibling, who seems bound by battle in a faraway realm against a mysterious new adversary.
Warrior goddess. Now we cross swords!
With fellow Epoch hopper Noelle by her side, Sarah ventures into the unknown, hoping to be reunited with her sister once more, unwary of the hazards and heartache lying in wait.
I'll be back.
As if the jargon-rich world of 13 needed any more assistance in being needlessly complicated, Final Fantasy XIII-2 throws the notion of time travel and alternate timelines into the mix.
The world is falling apart.
But in reality, the sequel is actually a lot more intelligible and unfettered than its predecessor by far, replacing the broadside of 13's encyclopedic girth with a decent and almost entirely unrelated standalone tale that isn't quite so obsessed with fastidious world-building or robo-motorcycle maidens. Whether the narrative still manages to evade questionable details.
Why am I able to fix these temporal anomalies, bend monsters to my will?
Transcend the cheese.
Look, my pendant has a brand new chain.
Okay.
Or suppress Japan's fondness for melodramatic bluster is a different matter entirely. But for folks that dig it, there's certainly plenty of that to dig into here.
We journeyed through time, solved the paradox, and met girls who looked exactly the same. The machine's working!
Let's see what it does, yeah?
Let's.
Final Fantasy fans reared on a diet of labyrinthine dungeons and steampunk burgs certainly had a bone to pick with 13's linearity, a function that gave exclusive attention to the grand yarn that the game was spinning. They will be happy to know that where the game is concerned, 13-2 is more fully stocked by comparison.
Have you seen that big old giant? Where'd he come from?
The continued absence of Final Fantasy staples like an overworld may seem discouraging, but 13-2 is a much larger game than it would have you believe. The gist is that Sarah has to travel through history, altering the course of events so that things inevitably play out hunky-dory. As such, you'll traverse each of the game's more expansively built areas, coming upon various time paradoxes to correct, anomalies to defeat, and enigmatic space-time relics called artifacts that power mysterious gates leading to other realities, ages, and beyond.
Later!
The salient point here is that you'll not only travel areas by location, but by time as well, opening up a multitude of divergent paths that run through a variety of different worlds. Jumping off the rails and visiting a different area isn't just possible, it's often encouraged, and there's plenty of incentive to explore and experiment across the time-space continuum. Even after relieving an area of all its items and objectives, players can turn back the hands of time and issue a do-over, and see things play out in a different way, maybe even netting an elusive paradox ending in the process. It goes without saying that the sense of interaction and progression here is by and far superior over the first game.
Now you're thinking, Kubo!
The narrow corridors of 2010 have stretched their legs into the multi-tiered winding pathways of the present, accented by towns that offer safe haven and side quests. Hunting out fragments, tameable creatures, and hidden items are sure to inspire collectathons of the highest order, and even some of the game's more ludicrous imaginings, like monster dressing and mog throwing, feel like exuberant gameplay elements borrowed from a bygone JRPG era.
When you fight a Seath, you have to forget that it was once human.
There are a few bumps in the rug, however. The character-advancing Crystarium system has gotten a fair deal simpler, the hackneyed QuickTime events lack inspiration, and the board game-like temporal anomaly sequences feel like capricious roadblocks on the path to progression.
He was wasting his time.
But overall, it's hard to take issue with the sequel's assiduous grab-bag approach with most everything else. Even if they're quite a few years late to the game, 13-2's earnest take on dialogue trees is a cute and significant step forward for the series.
That's right. Nice guess.
When all is said and done, a straight shot through the annals of time will take you a little past 20 hours to chart.
Oh, that's a long time from now.
A noticeably trimmer figure than the original game's main quest. But for what the sequel lacks in mileage, it makes up for in substance, easily being the more replayable game out of the two, with simply more to pursue in all. Concerns for a bigger and truer Final Fantasy game should be quieted, as you certainly get it in this multifaceted adventure.
Do you mean you actually rode here on that meteorite?
What may be considered the first game's best feature remains almost identical in the sequel, and unsurprisingly so. Final Fantasy XIII's auto battles stand as the linchpin to XIII-2's expedient combat pace, trading an ounce of choice for a pound of tactics that manifest on a greater and more meaningful scale. In short, characters in battle subscribe to a set of prescribed archetypes called roles, such as the hard-hitting commando or the magic-slinging ravager. When put together in an array, they form unique paradigms which simply translate to pre-assigned loadouts that can be shifted to and from on a whim. This creates the basis of the 13 series' unique approach to the Final Fantasy formula, which crossbreeds the discrete actions and ATB bar of old with a system that predicts the best set of abilities given the present situation.
This power, can you show me how it works? I want to learn how to protect myself.
A fervent few may cry foul to this seemingly autonomous process, but the truth is that it actually grants players greater access to minding the pace of the battle in motion, perhaps more than any other iteration of the Final Fantasy battle system in the past. XIII's is the one that takes the greatest account of timing and execution. Sustaining an offensive on the enemy's chain bar with carefully timed commands will inevitably reward players with a devastating stagger to monster defenses, while having the prescience to switch to a defensive paradigm at the right times may mean the difference between life or death. Here, it's more a game about controlling the tides of battle than drowning in the minutiae, and when you do decide to take discrete action, you're very often rewarded for it.
Hey, make up your mind.
In XIII-2, combat is sleeker than ever before, with a few noteworthy tweaks to the mechanics. Battles are now engaged by a creative mix of the real-time and random encounter system of past games, giving players greater agency in planning preemptive strikes and running away from unlikely matchups. Paradigm shifts are snappier, players can now switch freely between party members in combat, and the battle does immediately end should your leading point character end up on the wrong end of an Ultima cast. In lieu of summons and a large cast of supporting characters, XIII-2 features the ability to randomly tame monsters defeated in the wild, offering a unique party role and limit break-style Pharaoh Link ability.
Wait, what do you mean? Guide the Untamed?
Called into battle by pre-designated paradigm decks, these crafty critters bring a festive sense of customization to the table, filling out as the third ringer in your motley two-person crew. Like everything else about the game's battle system, the monsters add an unexpected, novel approach that ultimately pays off as a more interesting design in the end. It may take a bit of adjusting, but after chaining a throng of behemoths with some well-timed paradigm shifts, other Final Fantasy games may seem languid in comparison.
Are they going to destroy the planet?
Like so many of the other Final Fantasy games that have come before it, XIII-2 places a stamp on the gorgeous, tech fantasy anime look that has steadily become the face of the genre.
I can change the future?
However, unlike past games, it isn't quite as immaculate as it has been in series past. Compared to the silky smooth production that was XIII, the sequel buckles regularly under the stress of its beautiful and highly detailed character models, bringing frame rates to unpleasant and unflattering lows. On a production level, XIII-2 also seems to be lacking a touch of pizzazz that one would normally come to expect from a Final Fantasy game.
What do you say to that?
There isn't an obnoxious amount of CG cutscenes, extravagant locales, or a thoroughly outstanding soundtrack from start to finish. Of course, with the series' high standards, that still means that the game is still quite accomplished all into itself. Special props go out to the great voice actors who pull off a commanding presence through some often ridiculous lines.
My hopes go with you, Null Christ. Become an arrow through time, and speed your way to Sarah.
I guess this is it.
Perhaps it isn't the sequel you saw coming, but Final Fantasy XIII-2 will definitely be the game you'd be glad to play if the first left you yearning for a more substantial JRPG experience.
It was an impossibility, an enigma.
Unequivocally better than the original in almost every single way, XIII-2 presents a rehabilitated spin on one of the most polarizing Square Enix releases in recent years, as well as a promising way forward for the franchise. It may not be enough to undo what's already been done, but for what it's worth, XIII-2 may just change your mind about the future.
If you change the future...
If you change the future, you change the past.